Hi, good afternoon. This is Sean from rapidMATION speaking. On behalf of K2, I'd like to welcome you to this webinar. And today we're going to be speaking about how to use software bots and humans to drive legal innovation. So just a few housekeeping rules to start. On the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see there's a Q&A manager. Feel free to pop any questions in that question panel as we go through the webinar. I'll be sure to leave some time at the end of the webinar to make sure that all of your questions get answered. Okay, well, let's get to it. So, just a quick summary of what we're going to do today. So the title of the webinar was How to Use Software Bots and Humans to Drive Legal Innovation. And really what I'm going to share with you today is a customer case study that we have actually been recently working on. By way of introduction, I head up the team here at rapidMATION. rapidMATION is a K2 partner, and we weave together intelligent automation solutions for customers. Now, in this new world of intelligent automation, one of the key pillars of that is digital process automation or business process management, which is obviously what K2 does. And alongside that, we weave together robotic process automation, and we put a flavor of artificial intelligence into these solutions to allow us to weave together these end-to-end intelligent automation solutions. Really, after surveying a few people out there in the legal space, one of the main problems that people were having is that 50% of these senior legal practitioners were saying that they needed to get enough time and resources away from business as usual to do things that they want to do, and in so doing, innovate and make sure that they can obviously move forward with their jobs on a day-to-day basis. Today, I'm going to take you through just one scenario of how we've helped a certain legal customer to do some of these things. And to set the scene on what we actually did for them is we started off working with this company, and of course they were a legal company. They're a very well-named leading international law firm. And one of the things that I really like about this specific company is I see them as being very innovative. They are always keen to embrace technology and use technology to see how they can do things better on a day-to-day basis. Often what they do is they contact us to help out with some proof of concepts, and this is actually to go through and test out some of this new technology to see which of it could be used to obviously improve the day-to-day life of many of their lawyers inside their organization or any of the other employees inside their organization. Often some of this technology that they use is cutting edge technology, and I'm going to show you some of the things that they did today to solve one of the problems that they had. So the first problem they actually came across was they had a lot of new starters inside the organization, and these new starters obviously had a number of different questions that they needed to get answered. Now, being in the legal company, if we were tying up lawyers' times, and these people are generally charging their time on 6.5-minute increments, what that actually does is that ties up their time and they have to continuously answer these questions over and over again. Obviously, time in the legal space often leads to money, and this could obviously have a negative impact on the service that they were providing to their customers. So while these lawyers always were happy to help out these new starters in the organization, really there was a lot of these mundane, repetitive questions that they wanted to find a better way to be able to answer. So when we spoke with them, we broke the need down into that they were looking for a conversational natural language question and answer layer over a large number of different data sets that they had internally inside their organization. So some of these data sets where some of these question and answers lay range from things like frequently asked question lists across to support documents, or even some custom Q&A docs that they had put together, or even across SharePoint where they may have stored some of these different question and answer lists. And really what they wanted to do was they wanted to put a layer over this so that someone could ask a question in a very natural language way. Natural language meaning that as you and I speak naturally, we would be able to surface back answers for these different questions. And really to start, the two data sets that this company had, the first set of data was around people and development type data. So that's generally like human resource type data. So perhaps I wanted to ask a question about what my time off balance was, or what the leave request policy is, or when would the office be shutting down. Those were the types of questions questions that were in this people and development type data. And the second set of data they had was around information technology. So things that could form part of those kind of data sources would be things like, how do I reset my password, or how do I get access to a specific system, or even if I needed to get access to certain, I guess, technology internally, or even a new mobile phone device to use. There were many questions that were continually coming up around these two sets of data. Really, although this was the initial two sets of data that this customer wanted to be able to provide automatic question and answers for, that what they wanted to prove out is that over time, they may want to grow this data into a large number of subsequent data sources. So by doing these first two, this would prove out the fact that they could add in multiple data sources as they went on. So what we did is we broke down this need, and what we thought would be a good idea for them to put into play was a chatbot. Now, many of you may or may not have come across a chatbot before, but often the best scenario to describe it is when you jump onto a website, down the bottom right-hand side in a website, a little chatbot opens up and it says, "Hey, Sean, what are you looking to do today?" And this chatbot is obviously powered by a number of different rules and artificial intelligence, but really it allows me to interact with a system via a natural language interface. Now, a chatbot to start is generally pretty straightforward, but what we needed to do was we needed to give this chatbot or provide it with some artificial intelligence, which could obviously make it way more intelligent, and it could handle a number of different scenarios for us, and in so doing, it could make this chatbot seem more human-like to start. Now, in artificial intelligence, there are many examples that range from things like chess-playing computers to self-driving cars, but really we often use artificial intelligence in our day-to-day lives. And the example that I often give is when we take out our mobile devices and we open up Google Maps or Apple Maps and we put in how we'd like to get to a destination. That is a form of artificial intelligence that is actually telling us what the best and most effective and quickest way to get to our destination is. And it takes into account things like traffic and the like. But today I'm going to tell you a bit more about how we could use artificial intelligence inside the workplace. So the first part of artificial intelligence we needed to use in our chatbot was something called natural language processing. Now, really, that is what it allows us to do is it allows us to speak naturally to this chatbot. So as an example, I could say, what is my time off request, or what is my leave request? And both those questions are exactly the same, but what we need to do is we need to break those down into intents so that we can then go and actually pass this on to a computer that can then actually go and find that answer for us. So for us as normal human beings, we would just talk normally to this chatbot. The chatbot would be intelligent enough to break down our sentence into exactly what we're looking for, and then be able to go and process that data in some way, shape, or form. So often people ask, well, why would you use a chatbot? So the benefits of using a chatbot are wide and varied. The first one is that obviously this saves time, and it provides a way where we can provide these automated answers to many questions really quickly, and it prevents people from actually waiting for humans to respond back to them as they may have done in the past. Of course, another thing about a chatbot is it's always on and it works 24/7, 365. And of course, it's way cheaper than hiring people to go through and answer all of these frequently asked questions. Finally, one of the things we saw the most is that employee satisfaction was obviously way up there once we had implemented this, because this chatbot was always available, which means that any employee who had a question could very quickly get the answer to their question, and it obviously led to great employee satisfaction. Now, what we did is we used something called the Microsoft Bot Framework to be able to go through and build out this specific chatbot. Now, this picture may look pretty complicated at this stage, but I'll take you through it and obviously describe to you the different things that you may see inside this picture. And most importantly, I'll show you by way of example of how we'd actually use the bot framework to be able to create this chatbot for this company. The first thing that you need to know, on the top left-hand side, you'll see that there's a number of different channels, and channels inside a chatbot world means that I can expose this chatbot through a variety of different ways. As an example, I could put it on my public-facing website, or I may put it internally inside my intranet, or I may even surface a chatbot through something like Microsoft Teams, or even expose the chatbot through something like Cortana, where someone can actually talk to the chatbot and get answers back. But the good thing to know is there's a variety of different channels that the Microsoft Bot Framework makes available for you that you can build one chatbot and then expose it through a variety of these different channels. Now, once you start chatting with this chatbot, you'll see the big blue circle in the middle. Microsoft then has a number of these cognitive services or different artificial intelligence pieces that make this chatbot more intelligent. So the first thing you'll see there down the bottom is language understanding, and this allows us to break down the user's question into exactly what they're looking to do, and then we can do a variety of different things with that context that we have on what the user is looking to do. So as I said, there's a variety of different pieces of artificial intelligence that we can actually include inside our chatbots. I've spoken on the language piece. There's also something called Q&A Maker, which is a very nice piece of artificial intelligence that Microsoft gives us that allows us to automatically put Q&A Maker over a number of these different question and answer pairs, which could be inside documents or websites or SharePoint lists. And then it can actually surface back some of these questions and answer pairs to the user who may be asking them. There's a variety of other different pieces of artificial intelligence that we could add to this chatbot, but for the moment, we're just going to focus on that Q&A Maker piece. So let's have a look at what this actually looks like. So on the right-hand side through this walkthrough, you'll see what you're actually seeing. And this is actually showing the chatbot in action. In this specific example, we exposed this through something called SharePoint Online. And you'll see at the top of that image, there's something called the virtual assistant bar. And when a user comes into the intranet and they click on virtual assistant, what that does is it opens up a window on the right-hand side. And the virtual assistant bot wakes up and it says, "How can I be of assistance?" Now, what the user can do is the user can just start speaking with this specific chatbot. So the first thing that the user may ask is they may pose a question, and the question that the user posed in this instance is, how do I get a letter confirming my employment? Now, that is very much a people and development related question or an HR based question. And what the chatbot does, it goes away and it goes and fetches an answer, and it says in this example, it says, please email your request to the People and Development Operations team who will provide you with a letter. So really nice, saved some people's time there. It automatically surfaced me an answer to a specific question that I asked. Next up though, if I wanted to ask a different question to that same virtual assistant bot, I could ask the virtual assistant bot, how do I get a mobile phone? Now in this example, that's not an HR-based question, and that's an IT-based question. So the bot would go away and go to a different data store and go through and return an answer to the specific user. So the user would say, if you're a legal staff member, you're entitled to a device and number. And that just, again, saves the user time or the human user time in being able to have to answer that question. And the bot has automatically surfaced back an answer to that specific question. Now, what you saw there is we were actually using some of those channels and some of the artificial intelligence to go to very different data sets to go and answer that user specific question. So in the first example, we were going through and we were picking up some data from the people and development knowledge base. And in the second question, that was more an IT related question, and we got that data from the IT knowledge base. But for a user, they didn't have to distinguish or go to different bots to ask that question. They just came into that specific virtual assistant bot, asked the question that they wanted an answer for, and the bot was intelligent enough to go away to the specific knowledge base and fetch the answer to their specific question. So that was a really good start, but we thought, all right, how can we go through and make this virtual assistant bot even smarter? So the next thing that we did is the user came in and the user asked a question that says, when is the end of year office shutdown? And what the bot surfaced back is it surfaced back an answer to say our Australian offices will be closed from Christmas Eve through early in the new year. And that was a really good way to obviously answer that question. But what we actually asked after that is we said to the user, did that answer your question, yes or no? And often people refer to this as the washing machine syndrome, where you get into one of the IVR call facilities. All you really want to do is speak to the operator, but that automatic system automatically kind of takes you back through the menu system. And what this is designed to do is it's designed to say that ask the user if this answered their question, and if the user replied to the bot to say no, that didn't answer their question, then straight away we would actually take them out of this automatic bot flow. And what we'd do is we'd say, sorry, I could not be of assistance. Please wait while I bring someone into the conversation who will be able to assist. And in this scenario, we reached out to a real human user inside the organization. We linked them back up with this specific user. And in so doing, the user didn't get frustrated, and they got a real human user to be able to answer their question straight away. Now, the advantage of doing that is we could hopefully go through and answer a lot of these questions automatically without involving humans, and in so doing save time and money and free up resource. But should we not be able to answer the question in a specific way or to the satisfaction of the user, we can still get their question answered by looping in a real human user into that conversation. Now, what we also do behind the scenes here, obviously the user will be able to interact directly with the human, but what we do is we actually go through and we log these specific questions. So we log every question that the bot get asked, we log every answer that the bot receives back, and we actually log if the user said that the answer that they were supplied answered their question or not. And in so doing, what we can do is we can go through and see all of the times where the bot didn't answer the question, and we can go and retrain that bot using that artificial intelligence to get smarter with every question that that user actually asks. And in so doing, we can solve more and more and answer more and more questions automatically without tying up any human user's time. And that's a really important part of any artificial intelligence that you use, is obviously to make that smarter and smarter over time. Now, that was a really great start too, but we then went away and we thought, okay, well, how can we make this chatbot even smarter? So the next thing, in this specific organization, they used Chris21, which is a system where you can go through and you can obviously go check what your time off or leave balances are, and you would use this system to go through and actually submit a new leave request. So generally what would happen is a user inside the organization would log into the system called Chris21, they'd log into the employee and manager self-service portal, and what they'll be able to do there is see all of their current time off balances. So see how much time they have for additional leave or annual leave or long service leave or the like. Now, obviously what this means is that this user would need to come out of the chatbot and go through and log into a separate system to be able to return whatever their leave balance may be. And if they wanted to submit a new leave request, what they'd have to do is obviously log into Chris21, come in here, select their leave type, their start date, end date, and then go through and actually submit that leave request. But what we thought is, wouldn't it be nice is if this user asked a question where they asked, when is the end of the year office shutdown? And we had a lot of context of what question that user was asking. We surfaced back an answer to give them the dates when the office was going to be shut down. We asked them if they'd answered their question. And if they said yes, the bot responded back to say, great, glad I could be of assistance. But then what we wanted to do is we wanted to do something called question chaining. Now, question chaining allows us to obviously now prompt the user with a specific question because we have more context of exactly what they're trying to do. So in this scenario, because the user is asking about when the end of the year office shutdown is, we then do a question chain to say, would you like to check your time off balance? Because potentially the user has actually asked when the end of the year office shutdown is because they'd like to take off some time over that down period. So in this scenario, we ask the user, would you like to check your time off balance? And if the user clicks yes, what we were going to do is, instead of making that user go into a separate system and log into that system called Chris21 to get their time off balance, what we wanted to do is we wanted to introduce something called robotic process automation. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with robotic process automation, what this tool does is it does the clicks that you and I as humans would do using a computer. So as an example, if I wanted to log into my Windows machine, open up Excel, copy 1,000 records from Excel, open up another system, for example, Oracle or a legal practice management system, and go and then copy all that data into the legal practice management system, because that's a repetitive task, I can teach one of these software bots to automatically go and do that for me. Now, the advantage of that is obviously that's mundane, repetitive work that you and I as humans probably don't want to do. And also on top of that, software bots never sleep, they make zero mistakes, and they obviously cost a lot less than an employee. So in this scenario, what we did is we introduced a robotic process automation platform. And there's a company that specializes in this space, and it's a company called UIPath. This is a pretty interesting company because they have a vision to say that every single employee in the world should have a robot that can assist them with some of these mundane and repetitive tasks. On top of that, this company is actually one of the fastest growing enterprise software companies in history. So there's lots of companies out there similar to yours that is using this type of technology in combination with a tool like K2 to automate end-to-end processes. So what we did in this scenario is we went back to our chatbot, and you'll see on the right-hand side, this chatbot can have a number of different skills. Now, a skill does a variety of different things. So for example, I can go through and I can check the user's calendar to see when they may have an open slot. I could send email using the mail skill, or I could even check which tasks a user has by using the tasks skill. Or perhaps even if I wanted to find the local coffee shop, I could use the points of interest skill to go through and surface that back to the user. But what you'll see there is what we did is we created a specific skill for this specific bot, and we taught it how to speak to UiPath. Now, why would we want to do that? Because when the user came through and they actually said, we asked them, would you like to check your time off balance? Instead of that user having to log into that separate system, what we did is we kicked off one of these UiPath software bots, and what we did is we wanted to automatically go in and log into that Chris21 system and go and pick up that user's time off balance. So here you'll see this is just me pushing play on that UiPath automation, and what you'll see is this is a view of the chatbot that's going through and logging into that Chris21 system. So here it's automatically browsing to the leave menu, it's coming down, it's picking up the annual leave balance, and there it's automatically picked up from the user that there's 36 days or 36 hours rather of annual leave available for that user. So to play that process back, the user went through and said, when's the end of year office shutdown? The bot provided the details on it. We asked if that answered their question. The user said yes. The bot then came back and did some question chaining to say, would you like to check your time off balance? The user said yes. And in so doing, this kicked off a UiPath or robotic process automation process that went away in the background, logged into Chris21, picked up that user's time off balance, and came back into the chatbot and said, your time off balance is 36.25 hours. Would you like to submit a time off request now? So again, because we have context on what the user is actually asking, we've done some further question chaining to say, would you like to go and submit a time off request? And what we do in this scenario is in exactly the same way, the bot goes through and asks a series of questions to say, what type of time off request would you like to request? And the user says annual leave. From when do you want to request the time off? And the user enters some dates. And then before the bot actually submits this, it confirms back and it says, I'm ready to request your time off. You're requesting annual leave from this date to this date. Can you confirm this is correct? And if the user went through and said yes, in exactly the same way, instead of making the user log into that Chris21 system, we created a UiPath software bot that automatically went behind the scenes and logged that time off request for that specific user. So this is just showing the UiPath Studio. I'm going to push play on this and I'll show you what the bot looks like in the background and how it will go through and log this time off request. So it comes into Chris21, clicks leave, it opens up the leave request form, it comes into the drop-down list and it clicks on annual leave because that's the type of leave that the user is requesting. It puts in the start and end date, and then it goes through and automatically submits that time off request for us. So in that scenario, it was really, really good, right? So the user or the end user didn't have to leave the interactions with the bot, right? With the chat bots. So the virtual assistant bot automatically went through and started an automation to go and fetch the user's time off balance from a third-party system. And in this scenario, it was Chris21. We did some further question chaining, and then what happened is the virtual assistant bot went through and actually submitted a time off request using the details that the user had entered. And that was all done using this intelligent chatbot and using that specific skill that we taught that chatbot to go and be able to interact and talk with UiPath. So that was a really great start, but what we wanted to do then is actually make this bot even smarter. So in this scenario, we wanted to introduce the concept of human-centric workflow and digital forms. Now, with a chatbot, that's obviously automatically happening and it's asking me different things that I'd like to do. We then used a software bot using UiPath to go and perform some steps for me. But really, if I needed to loop a human into one of these processes, that's something called human-centric workflow, and that's where K2 comes into the picture. So in K2, it's all about human workflow and how humans interact with processes. And often humans need to be involved in things like approvals or managing exceptions or even performing specific activities in these end-to-end processes. Now, what happens when you use a platform like K2 is K2 has a task list that tells a user exactly which pieces of work they need to complete. So the great thing is once you put a task on a human user's work list, you can do things like escalation. So if that user doesn't complete that task in a specific time period, you can nudge them to remind them that they need to create or complete that task. Or you can actually pick up that piece of work and redirect it to someone else. Or perhaps you could even give that human user a deadline on when that piece of work may need to be completed by. But the great thing about having this all on a tracked and managed task list is people get visibility into how much workload a user might have. You can obviously distribute that workload between different team members, and even perhaps if a user goes off on annual leave and they're having a nice time up in Port Douglas, for example, you can redirect those tasks to other users in the organization, which means you'll still hit your deadlines and those types of things while that user is out of the office. Now, how humans interact with processes is generally they need some type of form to be able to visualize data. And digital forms is obviously electronic versions of paper forms, and we want to be able to see these forms on mobile, tablet, or desktop devices. And basically, we want to be able to provide these forms to human users wherever they may need them on any device that they may need. And enter K2, because this is a very good way that K2 solves some of these problems. So for those of you who may not be familiar with the K2 platform, K2 really has 4 pieces inside their platform. They have an enterprise grade workflow scenario. So this would allow me to be able to graphically design a human workflow process where I can say, after a user submits their time off request, perhaps redirect that task to their manager for approval, and then finally go write that data into some system. Now, generally, when you're dealing with human workflow, you need a way to create forms, and K2 has a great forms capability where you can create these feature-rich, reusable forms and add them very easily into your workflows. Now, generally, when you use forms, you need to be able to bring in data from a variety of different systems inside your organization. And the third part of the K2 platform is a patented piece of technology called smart objects. And these smart objects allow you to pull in data from systems like SAP or Oracle or your legal practice management system, or even things like Active Directory or SQL database. But it makes it really easy to be able to visualize data from your systems in forms and then be able to route these around using workflow. The final part of the K2 platform is being able to see who did what, when, how, and why, and obviously to be able to identify bottlenecks and further optimize these processes. So in this scenario, what we did is we went back to the skills that our intelligent chatbot had, and we taught our chatbot to be able to talk to K2. And why we wanted to do it in this scenario is if I go back to some of the question flow, one of the questions that this bot got asked was, how do I get a mobile phone? And basically the bot replied with an answer to say, if you are a legal staff member and you're entitled to a device and number, you need to obviously go through and request sign off from your manager, which will then be reviewed by the CIO. And in this scenario, we asked, did that answer your question? The user replied yes. The bot replied back with, great, glad I could be of assistance. But then the bot did some question chaining because it had more context on what the user wanted. And we said to the user, would you like to request a mobile phone? And in this scenario, if the user clicked yes, what we wanted to be able to do was we wanted to be able to go and assign a task to a human user where they could then go and either approve or decline this specific request. So the virtual assistant bot used its new K2 skill to go and start a K2 process. And in this scenario, it assigned a task to the CIO who needed to then go and approve the mobile phone request. So the great thing about K2 is here's a view of something that they call the workspace. And this workspace has a task list where a user gets notified of when they may have a new task that they need to complete. Now, there's many ways that you can obviously go through and notify a human user that they have a task they need to complete. One of those ways is by sending them an email notification, but this could be a push notification on their mobile device. It could be an SMS. There's a variety of different ways you could tell a human user that they have a task that they need to complete. One of the great features I love about K2 is you can also automatically reply to some of these emails with an action that'll automatically action this task and move it on to the next stage of the workflow. So in this example, it says to action your task by email, respond with one of the following actions, and the user could simply reply with approve, decline, or request additional information, and that will move it on to the next stage of the workflow. Now that may not be useful for every process, but a good example I always give is if I'm about to jump on a plane and perhaps one of my team members submit an expense claim that I need to approve, I can simply just reply to that email with approve or decline, and that moves through the workflow straight away without me creating a bottleneck. So a really, really nice way to do that. So what happens is when the user actually comes to their task list, they'll be able to click on their task. And in this scenario, on the right-hand side, what happens is a form opens up with different details of that specific task. So they might be quite small to read, but the instruction says, please review the below mobile phone request and action accordingly. So what's happened here is it's gone through and it's pulled in some details of the specific requester of who wanted a mobile phone. And it's also done an organization lookup to see where inside the organization that person actually resides. And in this scenario, it's used those patents, or that patented piece of technology from K2 called K2 Smart Objects. And in this example, it's an out-of-the-box connector that can go look up organizational information from something called Active Directory. Now, many companies use Active Directory to store user details in. So in this scenario, it automatically knows the user that's requested this mobile phone, and it's gone and looked up inside Active Directory in which department they reside and who their manager actually is. And it's automatically pulled that onto the form for me so that I don't have to go and search for that information. All the information that I need to action the task is right then and there in front of me on that specific form. Now, some of the other great features of K2, there's also something called a view flow diagram. And if I was the person who needed to action this task, I could click on this view flow diagram. And what this would do, it would open up a graphical representation of the process. Now, it's all color coded for me. So the green lines indicate parts of the process that it's already completed. Blue indicates exactly where I am in the process. And if the lines are gray, that means it hasn't yet touched that part of the process. So if I wanted to see exactly which path this workflow took to get to me, this is a really great way to be able to see that graphically. Now, if I click on any of those icons, I can get into a plethora of different reporting details about which events happened for me to get to that part of the process, how long that process may have been running for. It could tell me exactly who had actioned which parts of the process, if there'd been any escalations that had fired. But there's a rich set of reporting data that allows me to see exactly what happened in that process. But going back to the human user, the user can get the instructions. They've got all the details that they need to either approve or decline that task on the form. And then they simply select their action, which in this case was approve. And they added some comments to say, looks good, enjoy the new phone, Sheila. And in so doing, when that task was actioned, what that did is it completed that part of the workflow process. So in summary, some of the scenarios I showed you today wasn't just about humans in workflow processes. It was really about humans and software bots could work together. And often if you read a number of things out there in the press about artificial intelligence and how it's going to take away many of our jobs, we should always remember that humans are a key component to any of these intelligent automation processes, and many of these processes cannot function without us as humans being involved in them, because humans have some amazing capabilities and powers that potentially bots and AI would never have. So things like creativity or solving challenging problems. Of course, this AI can enrich and help us automate some of this tedious and time-consuming work, but really what this is going to allow us to do, it's going to allow us to focus on some higher value work and not have to worry about these mundane, repetitive tasks. And really, if you can take advantage of humans and software bots working together, that allows you to design your workflow to capitalize on the best of both of these attributes that humans and bots have. And that could, of course, lead to many benefits. So in this scenario, humans plus software bots leads to a really good outcome in the process. And as a reminder, some of the technology I showed you was K2 was all about the human workflow processes. And then we used a combination of UiPath, which was that robotic process automation platform, and the Microsoft bot framework to get to a good outcome for this specific customer. So just as a reminder of some of the things that I showed you today, Microsoft came into the picture where we built that intelligent chatbot that allowed a user to converse with it. We exposed that in this scenario in a company's intranet, but it could be exposed in a variety of different channels. And then we use some of the cognitive services or artificial intelligence that Microsoft gives us to be able to let this bot interact with different processes. And what we did then is we created some skills for this bot to be able to talk to things like K2 or UiPath. As a reminder, UiPath in this scenario was that robotic process automation platform. And I think this summarizes that tool really nicely. It says, hello, we're UiPath. We make robots so people don't have to be robots. And what that's saying is we use these software bots to do these mundane, repetitive tasks that us as humans don't really want to do. In the scenario that I showed you, we use this UiPath software bot to automatically go log in to that Chris21 system to get a user's time off balance and then to submit a time off balance or time off request on their behalf. And in so doing, we allowed the user just to interact with the system through that intelligent chatbot and not have to swap systems. And finally, what we did there is we brought K2 into the picture, and K2 is a great system that allows us to build apps that connect people, processes, and data. And in that scenario, we assigned a task to a human user who requested or approved that mobile phone request, and automatically using one of the K2 digital forms, we brought in data from a variety of different backend systems to provide a human user with all the details they need to either approve or decline that task. Okay, so just to close off, that's what we do. We're a company called rapidMATION, a K2 partner. We work on solutions that we call intelligent automation solutions. And really our mojo is all about automating processes that use both humans and software bots. And you can see those are the four things that we focus on. So the first thing is digital process automation. The second thing is robotic process automation. We make those solutions more intelligent using AI, and often we put chatbots in front of these solutions so that people can obviously interact with these systems in a natural language way. In order to do that, we need to work with some of the best of breed companies that are out there. We're pretty focused, and we believe that the four companies that are the best in the business for this are K2, Microsoft, UiPath, and a company called Abby, which does some content extraction, or OCR as people might know it, and they do content and process intelligence. So by weaving together these four different global software platforms, it allows us to solve some of these problems, like the example I showed you today, and these end-to-end intelligent automation scenarios. Often people ask us, hey, well, how do we get started with technologies like K2? We've specifically designed something that we call the proof of value pack. And this is a great way that allows customers or prospects or people to play around with some of this technology without having to commit to any software purchase up front. So we as rapidMATION, a K2 partner, we provide you 10 days of consulting time, and all we do is we charge you for our consulting days, but we will give you evaluation versions of one or more of those different pieces of software that we use, Abby, K2, Microsoft, or UiPath. And what we do is we help you choose a scenario and get that up and running for you. Customers really find extreme value in this, in being able to actually put together some of these intelligent automation scenarios before they need to commit to any software purchases. And I encourage you, if you do have scenarios that may weave together one or more of these technologies, certainly reach out to us, because we'd love to show you the power of K2 in action, and we can share some stories with you of how we weave together these different technology platforms. There have been many solutions that have come up time and time again. I wanted to share some of them with you because it might give you some other ideas of what people are doing with these types of systems. We're doing a lot in the accounts payable world, where we need to obviously get invoices approved by human users before we make payments, or things like employee onboarding, customer onboarding, partner offboarding. All of those types of things are really, really great processes when you weave together tools like K2 and UiPath. There's things like expense claims or ideas management or even master data management. These are just a few of the great solutions that you can weave together using these types of technologies. Should you wish to go check out some more of these solutions, I encourage you to visit UiPath Go or the K2 Solution Showcase. If you had to search for rapidMATION on there, you'll see some of these scenarios that we've solved for customers. And please bear in mind that it's not just these scenarios that you can automate using K2 or UiPath. These are just some of the more repeatable things that we've seen out there in the market that we've created solutions for. So think of K2 and UiPath as a big box of Lego. They can build, or we can automate your process the exact way that your business runs. And that's very different from buying an off-the-shelf solution where you may just be able to customize it. We can build these solutions to fit your business and the exact way that it runs. One of the things that people often ask is, well, there's so much to learn in this space. We've recently created something called the Automation Alliance. This is a rapidMATION community initiative, but I encourage you all to go sign up for this. It's where some of our customers, friends, technology partners, and solution partners can obviously share some information of the latest happenings inside the intelligent automation space. There's some really great K2 demos in there from around the world that show you some of the great scenarios that K2 has managed to automate and the value that it's provided to its customers. All right, so with that in mind, I really thank you for your time. I know taking 40 minutes out your day is a big ask, so I really appreciate your time. I hope that has been valuable and that you found some interesting things out of that. As always, if you have any questions, please pop them in the Q&A manager now, and I'll spend the next 5 or so minutes just going through some of those questions. Okay, so I'm just opening it up here. All right, it was great to hear this preso. Thanks again, Sean. Only a pleasure, Jeff. All good. The next question is around K2 and K2 smart forms specifically. Do K2 smart forms work in an offline mode? So the answer to that is yes, K2 smart forms do work in an offline mode too. An example of that is perhaps I'm in an area where there's little to no reception and I need to fill in, I don't know, maybe a snag list, or I need to fill in some survey of some sorts. K2 smart forms are really good to be able to go through and capture all that data, and then as soon as I come back into an area of connectivity, that can sync up and start off a workflow process. That's a very common pattern, one of the true powers of the K2 platform. Okay, let's see, there's some other questions coming in here. Thanks for a great preso. Great to see these solutions in action. Thank you very much. All right, so the next question here is specifically around UiPath. And specifically around how, if you weave together one of these solutions and some of the data or reporting data sat in UiPath and some in K2, how would you be able to get end-to-end reporting of where or what happened in this specific process? Very good question. Both of those systems, both K2 and UiPath, have some really great logging data to see who did what, when, how, and why. We've actually created a solution called Intelligent Human in the Loop that brings together that data and makes it really easy for customers to be able to see exactly what a software bot did, what a human might have done, and bring those scenarios together. Okay, lots of great feedback here. All right, the next question. One on K2. Oh, yeah. So is there an evaluation version of K2 available? Yes, there is. If you head over to k2.com, and I believe there's a try K2 button on the top right-hand side, you'll be able to play with the K2 designer and build out a workflow process there. But of course, if you need some more details on that, I know the K2 team here in Australia would be happy to help out. Just drop them an email on anz@k2.com. Okay, the next one, and probably the last one that we've got time for today, is do you run any, I guess, workshops or scenarios around how we can get going with this intelligent automation? The answer to that is yes. We're actually midway through something that we call the Intelligent Automation Solution Showcase. We're doing a roadshow across Australia. In fact, on Thursday this week, we'll be up in Brisbane. So if anyone's around in Brisbane, come and join us for that event. You'll find some details on the K2 ANZ blog. So that's anz.k2.com. You can sign up for that event. We're coming to Canberra soon as well. And we've already completed Sydney, Melbourne, and Perth as well. We also do something called the Intelligent Automation Roundtables. So again, you can find some more details on the K2 ANZ blog, which is anz.k2.com. Okay, I think that's probably taken us to the maximum time we have. There's still a few questions inside here which I will answer privately, but I wanted to thank you again for your time. I know time is a precious commodity nowadays, and I've just put my email address up on screen there. So if you have any other questions, would like to chat a bit more about any intelligent automation solutions you may want to create, feel free to drop me an email on sean@rapidMATION.com. Excellent. All right. Thank you very much for your time, everybody. I hope it's been useful, and we'll speak soon. Bye-bye.